webinar, no, not webinar, demo is what I normally would do when there's someone from a specific company that want to see how can they deliver SAP CPI better. Obviously, not obviously, we have the same capability for SAP PI, but we're not going to cover this in this this session. Yes, so we'll start out with the way you normally develop any kind of project where you are going to get some kind of an issue from the business, wanting to figure out what you need to achieve with this, and then we want to go all the way until we have tested, governed, and released this. And if any questions along the way, either put them into the chat. And I need to share the screen. That's always a good thing. Yes. Good. I have the chat, I have the video, and I'll just unmute my video so I don't have to consider that part. So we'll start out with any kind of change that you want to do. And most of the time, or it can either be that you need to update the iFlow in some way, or that you need to make a modification to a Groovy script or XSLT. And in this, I just want to show what we have done to make it easier to manage your Groovy scripts and be able to test them. So one of the things we have in the Figaf tool is a tool, and I can see a lot of all of these different things is interlinked. So I really understand if you cannot follow along in this. If not, then just ask questions. So you have your CPI tenant. One of the things we're doing with that tenant is we're downloading continuously all the different iFlows that you deploy in packages. And with that, we are able to know what's going on in your CPI platform. And that's really good because we can then handle and manage everything like that. And we do versioning of all the different objects that you have in your CPI tenant. One of the things we also added is the ability to take all these versions of all the objects and put it into a Git repository. And the reason why we wanted to have the Git repository was that it was really a simple way that enabled us to share everything that you needed to work on when you're doing any PI or CPI development. So I have to admit I'm not really good at with Git or setting up all of these Groovy scripts. So the thing I wanted to make sure that this was covering was it was really simple and you did not have to learn a lot of things. So once you've created this agent, synchronized all the data from your CPI tenant, you simply just select a Git repository. Obviously it needs to be private, and then it can push out all the data to this Git repository. And one of the cool things that it does, it adds a lot of template files about what needs to be done for this to work, and you'll then see all of these templates, and it's just about copy paste this. And there's another video if you want to try out the tool that shows you how to configure this Git repository. But the idea is that you don't need to be a Git expert, you don't need to know a lot of all these different things for it to get started running this tool. So I have an iFlow here that we've downloaded and got all the different payloads for it. One of the things we also have, and we'll just show later how you can reuse your test cases, is that we have test case that we have retrieved from your PI system. In this, we have in and outgoing messages. We have all the data that we need for that has been processed on a specific step in the CPI flow. And what we can then do is we can open this Groovy file, and this then contains some different scripts we can run, and we can just run any of these, and it is takes 10 minutes to configure. So there's not a lot of things you need to learn about this. And it will then run, it will push this test data in, and you will then get the output. And now we can see it does not give us any warnings because we've not made any changes to it. So let's update this Groovy 2, and now we will change this header to number 2. And then that should obviously cause some problems because we have made some changes to this scripting. And we just want to run our Groovy script now here in debug mode. And one of the big challenges I often see is it's really difficult to see what's going on in a Groovy script if you cannot really be in and debug this. And what this is giving me now, I have a breakpoint in this. I can see the payloads that is in this message, what we have extracted. At this specific point in time, we can step over. Resume program, and then it will complete, and we should hopefully get a warning saying there was actually something wrong in this. That was one failed test. We can see the test. No. Maybe it's because there is a number of messages that is being processed on this. Oh well. No worries. We have made our change here to debug. We'll just stop the debugging, and we're good to go. So we have changed part of the Groovy scripts that we want to process on. So one of the things we can do is we can just simply from here we can select upload, and this will take this all the content we have for this iFlow, push it into the CPI system. We also have an option to trigger the deployment directly from here. So let me go into the CPI system. So one of the things we do not have is we do not have a graphical editor that allow you to edit the iFlow. That's, I would say, a little over to the difficult side, and I'm not sure that it will help us much. If we look at the resources, we can see this header 2, and hopefully we got a 2 here at the end of this. So all of this has then been in a repository. We can manage and see it here. So we just want to have a new version we can deliver with this, and one of the things I also just want to change is I will change this to good value 2 and 2, 3 here. So we just have some changes, otherwise it's a little boring. So we have saved as a version, we will deploy it. And unfortunately I've seen that my tenant takes a little while to deploy at the moment. So sometimes we do need to wait a little with these things. But that's okay. So when we are running with the Figaf tool, one of the things we want to be sure on is that we're only running with real started flow and not after it has been deployed. We did see sometimes when we are too fast and sending a lot of data into it and running our test that there was not picking up the newest version of it. Good. So one of the things we have is this repository that continuously download your CPI content, and you can schedule it to run every half an hour, and then it'll take that specific version there is at that point in time, download that and push it into the Git repository. That way you got all the data in the Git repository regarding these things. So synchronization is finished and took 12 seconds, and we can then see what was changed here. Last things that were changed, it was this order to and the scripts header that we wanted to test and manage as a part of this. So we did this because the business wanted us to create this, and they had then asked in a Jira, ServiceNow, or incident, or whatever you have of your systems, to make sure that it's the correct thing that's being created. So we'll say assign to ticket. We will call this you probably want to use some better naming for this. Otherwise you end up with a little fun things going on. So it can be Jira number. You can have the URL to your Jira. And we'll put in the description here. And we obviously need to specify which landscape do we want to deploy it on. So we have been in and we have created landscapes that allow you to deploy these things. So let me just see the landscape here. So here we have the landscape configuration, and the landscape I'm currently using for this CPI is this one. And here we can specify if it requires approval and who can approve it. And there's some transports in, so we cannot change it here. But here is the idea that you can go in for your landscape and configure when you want to import in QA. These are the guys, the integration architects that needs to approve it before you can import it to your productive system. Maybe you need someone else from the QA team or something like that to be able to approve it before that it can be released. So we'll leave it as it is. Maybe landscape deployed. So it will deploy it after we have imported the things now. Good. So we'll go back to our ticket, and we can see we have these objects as a part of this. Next, we want to record or test the thing that we have done. Does it affect the changes that we have, or has something else been affected by it? So I created a couple of test cases. You would obviously want to run this with all your test cases because, in this repository, the goal is that you only have test cases that are valid, that you want to use to test all changes in. We can then specify we want to run it, and it will then send this message into the iFlow. And once it has sent the message into the iFlow, it will download these all the trace messages. And let's see if it was triggered. No, it's not triggered yet. It is started. Oh, it's still started. Oh, it's the mock iFlow. So yes, one of the things we also have in the testing operation is we have a small flag here we can set that says do not use original system for receiver communication. And the idea behind this is if you, for instance, have some iFlows that you cannot call, like create employee. If you call that again and again, you'll just get a warning saying, or some exception saying, hey, this employee is already in our system, you cannot create it, and therefore it should give you some warnings. So right now we have selected this, so that means it will take all the payloads that we have, all the iFlow we have, replace the sender channels and all the receiver channels. So if we go to this that is starting, we will then see that these were some OData services, and we can see if we look at this this connection, it's calling the Figaf tool with specific information, and that means it will get all the data that is required for this step to be processed at this step point in time. So if I have the original here, we can see there's an OData service calling this endpoint, and with that we can replace all external actions with a simple update here. So maybe it's deployed now. So it has been deployed, and we can see it has even triggered this message, so we can see what's going on here. And yes, if we go back to our ticket, it will then download all these different messages from this specific iFlow. And once it's done that, we will be able to see the comparison result of it. And we can see there is something that's good and something that is bad. So let's look at these things. So we got this webinar property that we have changed, and that's what we expected to get. And what else? There was a diff also here. We can go in and ignore this. Then this will be added to an ignore list, and we will then be able to fetch this out pretty simple and compare these results later. If we look at these diffs here, was it the last one? So we got one that was compared successfully. I don't know where I made the change into it. So we will just ignore this one. And then we can run comparison again. This will then just, with this new applied settings we have, run the full comparison, make sure that all documents are identical, and we can see we now only have this one. If we look at the diffs of this, sometimes it takes a little while for it to come back and compare these values. Let's see if it's this one. It's the same one. So sometimes you run it a couple of times, it will fetch it. So here we have one that may be the last time. So here, if we look at the diff here, we got this good value that was changed as a part of this this processing. One of the things we can now do is we can select this test case, and then we can update and use this as test case. So now we have accepted this was the only change as part of this, and the next time we're running it, we have a new expected outcome, which is the one we just got. So if I run it again, we'll get it successful. If I'm lucky. I guess it's always fun with live demos that there's always something that will go wrong or will not happen as it's supposed to be. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Either unmute yourself or write them into the chat. So now it seems like everything is accepted. And if we look here, these runs in some different jobs. So sometimes it needs to get to that specific schedule before the status is updated. So now we have taken our change, we have updated it, we have seen that everything worked as expected. Next up is we can go and transport this, and to do this we just click on the transport button, and the transport button is, it'll create a transport of the objects that you have in this package. So we can transport packages, iFlows, and value mappings as a part of this, and all these things you can do govern compare and see what was changed as a part of this release. So if we look here, we can see we got this iFlow. We can now configure it across the full landscape. So we will just put a -7 or -2 here, and we can see here it is complaining that this password does not exist on this tenant. So notice it's the same one we're using for both of them. But obviously in real world you would use 2 different tenants. Yeah, or you'll use the development tenants for both QA and development, and it will just add this poster prefix to it, and you can then see if it behaves as you expect it to. So if I were able to switch this into approval mode, I could then send to approval, and then the guys that have approve access can go in and approve, and then I can import it again. But now I just have the access to import it, and we can then run the import, and let's see. So everything was successful. We delivered it, and it still just gives me this warning. This value is missing. Please fix it. Good. So if we just go back here to the, we can see we got a new iFlow here that's deploying, which is then postfixed with QA, and in the HTTP we also just prefixed the URL with QA, so you can actually hit it, use it externally, the same with process direct and everything like that. So now we have delivered this. We can also run the test on the target system, but we're actually good to go. So we can specify to resolve, and then we can create a report. And the purpose of this report is to document everything that you have created. So you can put this into Jira, Solman, or whatever you are using to understand what kind of changes that have been made. So here we have the issue we just created. We got the information, the link to the Jira, the description, what are all the objects that we have as a part of this, which test cases did we run here, which reports, and which transactions we saw here. Then you can take this, put it into Jira Solman, and you are good to go and can go on creating the next thing you want to solve. Any questions? Cool. Yes. Okay. So now this is the normal release cycle, that you take some data, add the test cases that you already have, and run them. Obviously, you want to create test cases at some point in time, and that is also really simple. So the idea is simply that you just go to find your iFlow you want to create. You can also do more iFlows at once if you are a cool guy or gal, and you then select the record messages. You create a new test suite if you want to add that. Put them into something that makes sense, so you can have something for the project, for finance, or for package, whatever makes most sense in a CPI world. You can put names for these, so you know which one belongs to what, or what was the reason you created this, and you can also put XPath into this, so people can actually see what was the real value here. So we'll create it. And the thing now is we want to set the iFlow into trace mode and start processing these things. So now we have moved it into trace mode. We will then trigger my postman here. That will send a message in, but oh, that's the wrong one. Yes. There. So the idea is we can now pull all of these messages, refresh, and then it'll download all the different steps that we had from here. And yeah, depending on the size, number of trace methods, it can take a little while to run this. So now it's completed. We got our 30 steps in this. And if we look at it, we can see all the payloads that comes in all at every part of the process. What are the values that we're sending in with this specific point in time? And let's close this one. So here we got all data about what's being sent. And with that, we have our test case. So we can just go create test case with this, and it'll then see which systems you can want to run this on. And then we can run it. Let me just run it normally. So obviously, if you have the option and it makes sense, you want to run it normally, because yeah, it's faster, and you will test with the backend systems. So we can just say run on the system, and obviously now we should not get any unexpected results in this process, because we are just testing with the real iFlow. So I guess this was this one. And yeah, that's good. And we see it's compared. So it's still trying to download it, and now everything's compared successfully, and everything looked like it's supposed to be. And we can schedule these test cases to run at night, get an email from it if we want that every night when it runs. But you don't really need that, because you anyway have the other option about sending the iFlows through, or testing with the mock iFlows, and only test the iFlows that you're actually making changes to. So that is how easy it is to create test cases, and it's also able to support if you have, for instance, a schedule, a SFTP adapter, or stuff like that. We cannot really connect to those systems in an easy way. So what we'll do instead is we'll just create a simple iFlow that looks the same, where we have just replaced the sending part, or the triggering part, with an HTTP channel that we can then trigger remotely, making it possible to actually run these different kind of things. So that was test case creation. And the last thing I just want to cover is the support part. So one of the things that is a little challenging from time to time is which type of errors have we seen before? How did we handle them? Are they important or not? A lot of time when I've been monitoring, that we get all these errors, past week failure, and you need to go through all of these and figure out, are they relevant? Is this something new? And how do we actually handle this? What's going on in these cases? So what we have created is a tool where you can go and specify these are the interfaces that we want to select, download all of them, and then you can, what you can then do is you can set up a rule. So here we have all the information about this iFlow. We got payload, inbound messages, and you can then add a rule for this. Let's just see. I guess this is the problem here, that something was not that the cloud connector was not processing. We can add labels to it, see obviously, or whatever. We can specify, is this something we want to do anything with, or is what should be happen. We have a mute notification, so we don't really want to see this every time it happens. So we just want to see it every 60 minutes, and we can then write how to fix it. So we have a good way of handling all these changes, making it a lot easier to solve it. So you're not just getting a mail that says this fails, but you're actually getting a mail, this fails, and this is how to solve it. And that speeds up the process quite a bit. And criticality, we have added some restart functionality into it. It's not the best approach, but it is an approach that is simple to handle and can reprocess, make sure you are not sending the message too many times and stuff like that. And then the last thing is a message monitor. And one of the challenge, if you look at the standard message monitor, is that you up here can add one or all artifacts and one or more statuses. What we have created is an option that allow you to create different packages for these things. So it'll just for the agent, these iflows, we have the option to see all for the past month specific iflows that we want. So we can select all of these different get custom iflows, and we can see the data for these. We can also see the OData query for it if we wanted to. And the idea here is that, where to go, demo center. Oh. Once you have created this, you can give users access to view this. And here you can see application ID, you have sender, receiver information. You got access to both persisted and MPL attachment in one monitor. And yeah, it is simply just go to the user management and give the user the specific role, and then he can see these tiles. So it's really simple, and the user will only see the things that really make sense for him to monitor. And then lately we also got system monitor that can just see how your CPI system is performing. Are there any differences in the latency, and how many messages are you processing an hour or in this specific period of time, and CPU load. So if there's any changes going on, it's, obviously if you see it for a longer period of time, you can see some spikes when something had happened, and you can also see if when the system has been patched. So you can see here there was an downtime here when it was going out to a new system or a new instance, whatever it's called. Yes, that was the main thing I wanted to cover in this webinar, or whatever you call it. It's not really a webinar, it's more like a demo.